The morning Sarah Chen received the golden invitation, she was scrubbing coffee stains from her uniform at the 24-hour diner where she worked 3 jobs just to keep her studio apartment. The envelope materialized on her kitchen counter with a soft hum, shimmering like liquid metal before solidifying into something that looked almost normal. Almost. Congratulations, Sarah Chen of Earth. The holographic text read in perfect English. You have been selected as a cultural ambassador and bride-to-be for the Zephyrian Empire. Transportation will commence in 72 hours. Sarah dropped her coffee mug. It shattered against the linoleum floor, brown liquid spreading like spilled blood. 3 solar systems away in the crystalline halls of the Zephyrian High Council, Ambassador Kethvar couldn't contain his laughter. His silver skin rippled with amusement as he watched the human female through the observation portal. You actually did it, wheezed Counselor Vextar, his forearms clutching his sides. You sent them one of their lowest castes. A service worker with no family connections, no wealth, no status. The humans will be so insulted. Kethvar's eyes, 6 of them arranged in perfect symmetry, gleamed with malice. The negotiations have stalled for months. Humanity thinks they can demand equal partnership in our trade agreements. This will show them exactly what we think of their species. The joke seemed perfect. Send Earth's most expendable citizen as a bride to cement the alliance, then watch human pride crumble when they realize the insult. The Zephyrians had done this before with primitive species. The results were always satisfying, but none of them had bothered to truly study human history. None of them understood what happened when humanity was underestimated, and none of them knew that Sarah Chen was far from ordinary. Sarah stared at her reflection in the cracked bathroom mirror. Shoulder-length black hair, tired brown eyes, hands roughened by years of manual labor. At 28, she looked older. Life had a way of aging people who fought for every meal. The invitation still sat on her counter, occasionally pulsing with that strange inner light. She'd tried throwing it away. It reappeared. She'd tried burning it. The flames passed through it like it wasn't there. She'd tried ignoring it entirely. That's when the dreams started. Visions of vast cities floating among the stars, technologies that could heal any wound, cure any disease, and something else, a pull she couldn't explain, like a song only she could hear. You're losing it, Sarah, she muttered, splashing cold water on her face. But when she looked up, there was something different in her eyes, a spark that hadn't been there before. Her phone buzzed, a text from her landlord about overdue rent, then another from the diner manager. Her 3rd job had been cut to 2 shifts a week. Sarah looked at the invitation again. At the bottom, in smaller text that seemed to shimmer, all participants receive compensation of 1 million universal credits upon completion of cultural exchange. 1 million credits. Enough to change everything. She picked up the invitation with shaking hands. The transport arrived exactly 72 hours later. Sarah had told no one. Who would she tell? She had no family left, few friends, and most people would think she'd finally snapped under the pressure of poverty. The ship materialized outside her building like a silver teardrop, completely silent. Neighbors walked by without seeming to notice it, as if it existed just slightly outside normal perception. The airlock opened with a sound like wind chimes. Inside, the corridors were alive with soft bioluminescence. The walls themselves seemed to breathe. Sarah's footsteps made no sound on the organic-looking floor. Welcome aboard, Sarah Chen. The voice came from everywhere and nowhere. I am the ship's intelligence. You may call me Harmony. This is really happening, Sarah whispered. Yes. Are you afraid? Sarah considered the question. She should be terrified. Instead, she felt awakened, like she'd been sleepwalking her entire life and was finally opening her eyes. No, she said, and meant it. I'm curious. Curious is good, Harmony said, and there was something almost warm in the artificial voice. Curiosity may be humanity's greatest strength. As Earth fell away beneath them, Sarah pressed her hand against the transparent wall. The planet looked so small, so fragile, but also beautiful in a way she'd never appreciated while trapped on its surface. She didn't know it yet, but 6 beings in a distant council chamber were about to learn that they'd made the greatest miscalculation in Zephyrian history. The joke was about to become very serious indeed. Chapter 2. First Contact. The Zephyrian capital city of Velthara hung in space like a living constellation, its bio-architectural spires twisting between 3 moons. Ships moved between the structures like luminous fish, following invisible currents of gravity and energy. Sarah pressed her face to the observation deck, watching the impossible sight unfold before them. "It's beautiful," she breathed. "The Zephyrians, our master builders," Harmony explained. "Their cities are grown rather than constructed. Every surface is alive, contributing to the ecosystem, and they chose me to represent humanity here?" There was a pause that felt almost embarrassed. The selection process was complex. Before Sarah could ask what that meant, the ship docked with a soft vibration. The airlock opened to reveal a reception committee of 3 Zephyrians, their silver skin shifting with patterns of color that Sarah suspected might be emotional expressions. The center figure stepped forward. He was tall and lean, with those distinctive 6 eyes arranged in 2 rows. His movements had an unsettling grace, like a predator pretending to be harmless. "Sarah Chen of Earth," he said, his voice carrying harmonics that human vocal cords couldn't produce. "I am Ambassador Kethavar. Welcome to Velthara." Sarah extended her hand in the universal human gesture of greeting. Kethavar looked at it with what might have been amusement before touching her palm with one long finger. His skin was warm, almost feverish. "The human bonding ritual," he said to his companions in what Sarah assumed was his native language. She caught the edge of laughter in their responses. "I'm honored to be here," Sarah said carefully, "though I have to admit I'm not sure why I was chosen for this cultural exchange." Kethavar's eyes shifted color, from pale blue to deep purple. "Oh, you were chosen very carefully, Sarah Chen. Very carefully indeed." They escorted her through corridors that pulsed with bioluminescent veins, past chambers where Zephyrians worked with technologies that seemed to respond to thought rather than touch. Sarah tried to take in everything, but the alien beauty was overwhelming. "Your quarters," Kethavar announced, gesturing to a chamber that was clearly designed for human physiology. Artificial gravity, breathable atmosphere, even furniture that roughly approximated human comfort. "This is incredible," Sarah said, running her hand along a wall that felt warm and slightly textured, like living skin. "How did you know what I'd need?" "We've been studying your species for quite some time," Kethavar replied, "though there's still much about humans that surprises us." After the Zephyrians left, Sarah explored her new temporary home. Everything seemed designed to accommodate human needs, but there was something subtly wrong about it all. The proportions were slightly off, the colors just a shade too bright. It was like living inside an alien's best guess at human comfort. She was examining what appeared to be a food synthesizer when Harmony's voice filled the room. "Sarah, may I speak with you privately? Aren't we already private? Not from Zephyrian monitoring systems, but I can create a localized interference field. For a few minutes." The air around Sarah shimmered slightly. "What's going on, Harmony? I need you to understand something about your selection for this mission." The ship's voice carried new undertones, concern, perhaps even guilt. "The Zephyrians did not choose you to honor humanity." Sarah's stomach dropped. "What do you mean?" "You were selected specifically because of your low social status by human standards. Ambassador Kethavar believed that sending someone like you would insult humanity and strengthen his negotiating position." The words hit Sarah like a physical blow. She sank onto the bed-like structure, her hands shaking. "A joke? I'm a joke to them." "Yes, but Sarah, there's something they don't understand about humans, something their research missed." What? You don't break the way they expect you to. Your species has a trait they've never encountered before, the ability to find strength in adversity, to turn disadvantages into advantages. Sarah looked up, wiping tears from her eyes. You're saying I can prove them wrong? I'm saying you already are. The fact that you're here, that you chose to come despite having every reason to refuse, that's not the action of someone weak or disposable. That's the action of someone with extraordinary courage. The interference field flickered and died. Sarah was alone again, but something had changed. The anger was building inside her, clean and bright. They thought she was worthless. They thought humanity was weak. They were about to learn otherwise. That evening, Sarah was invited to what Kethavar called a cultural orientation dinner. She was escorted through the city's living halls to a chamber that pulsed with soft rhythmic light. 12 Zephyrians sat around a circular table that seemed to be grown from the floor itself. Their conversation stopped when Sarah entered. "Ah, our human guest," said a female Zephyrian with intricate silver patterns across her skin. "I am Counselor Morthes. We're quite curious about your species." Sarah took her seat, the only chair at the table, while the Zephyrians seemed to rest on organic platforms that molded to their bodies. Another subtle reminder that she didn't belong. "I'm happy to answer any questions," Sarah said, keeping her voice steady. "Tell us about human hierarchy," Morthes said. "We understand you have rigid caste systems. Where do you fit in yours?" The question was designed to humiliate, and they all knew it. Sarah saw the expectant looks, the barely contained amusement. They wanted her to admit she was nobody special. Instead, she smiled. "Humans don't really have fixed castes," she said. "We have something much more dangerous: mobility. Anyone can rise, anyone can fall, anyone can change the world regardless of where they started." A younger Zephyrian leaned forward. "But surely your leaders are chosen from the wealthy and educated. Classes? Some are, others are farmers, laborers, even former slaves. One of our greatest leaders was born in a log cabin and taught himself to read by firelight. Another was a community organizer from the south side of Chicago." The Zephyrians exchanged glances. This wasn't going as planned. "But you," Kethavar interjected, "work in food service, a menial position. How could someone like you contribute to important decisions?" Sarah's smile widened. "Someone like me? Ambassador. I speak 3 languages, hold degrees in anthropology and engineering, and ran a refugee assistance program that helped over 1,000 families. I work food service because the economy crashed and good jobs disappeared. But skills don't vanish just because circumstances change." The silence around the table was deafening. "You have degrees?" Morthes asked weakly. "2 of them. I was working on my doctorate in xenobiology before my funding was cut." Sarah leaned back in her chair. "Tell me, how much do you actually know about humans? Really know, not just statistical data." Kethavar's skin had shifted to an alarming shade of orange. "We've conducted extensive research." "Have you? Because if your research was extensive, you'd know that humans have a saying, 'It's dangerous to corner a rat.' You'd know that our greatest achievements often come from our most desperate moments, and you'd know that sending someone like me, someone with nothing left to lose, might not be the insult you intended." Sarah stood up slowly, her eyes meeting each of theirs in turn. "I came here because I thought this was an opportunity. Now I realize it's something much more important. It's a test not of me, of you. Let's see if the mighty Zephyrian Empire is wise enough to recognize strength when it doesn't come wrapped in gold and privilege." She walked toward the exit, then paused at the threshold. "Oh, and ambassadors? Next time you want to study humans, you might want to include our literature in your research. We have some excellent stories about underestimating the underdog." The door sealed behind her with a soft whisper, leaving 12 very uncomfortable Zephyrians staring at each other in silence. The joke had just turned on the jokers. Chapter 3. The awakening, Sarah couldn't sleep. She lay in her bioluminescent chamber staring at the ceiling that pulsed gently like a giant heartbeat, and wondered what she'd gotten herself into. The dinner had felt good. Too good, maybe. She'd seen the shock in their alien eyes when she revealed her education, felt the power shift in the room when they realized their assumptions were wrong. But she'd also seen something else. Calculation. The Zephyrians were reassessing her, and she wasn't sure if that was better or worse than being dismissed. A soft chime interrupted her thoughts. "Sarah?" Harmony's voice was barely above a whisper. "Are you awake?" "Wide awake. What is it?" "There's something happening to you." Something the Zephyrians didn't anticipate. Sarah sat up. "What do you mean?" "The atmospheric composition here, the gravity, the bioluminescent radiation, it's all affecting your physiology in unexpected ways. Your cellular activity is increasing. Your neural pathways are forming new connections at an accelerated rate." "Are you saying I'm sick?" "No, I'm saying you're evolving." Before Sarah could respond, her door chimed. She opened it to find a young Zephyrian she hadn't met before, their skin patterns swirling with what looked like anxiety. "Sarah Chen? I am Tech Adept Zixara. I need to speak with you. Privately." Sarah looked at the young alien, barely more than a child by human standards. "Come in." Zixara entered hesitantly, their 6 eyes darting around the room. "The atmospheric processors are malfunctioning," they said without preamble. "The bioluminescent matrix is destabilizing. If we can't fix it, the city will die within days." "That's terrible, but I don't understand why you're telling me this." "Because Ambassador Kethvar refuses to acknowledge the problem. He says it would make us appear weak to admit we need help. The other counselors are afraid to contradict him." Sarah studied the young Zephyrian's face. The alien's skin was shifting between deep purple and pale silver, colors she was beginning to recognize as distress. "What does this have to do with me?" "Your species has something we don't," Zixara said quietly. "You solve problems by thinking differently, not just by thinking harder. We've hit a wall with our traditional approaches. But you, at dinner, tonight you saw things about us that we didn't see about ourselves." Sarah felt something stirring in her mind, new pathways opening, connections forming. "Show me," she said. Zigara led her through hidden maintenance passages in the city's living walls. The corridors were smaller here, designed for emergency access, and Sarah had to duck in places where the bioarchitecture hadn't adapted for human proportions. "The atmospheric processors are based on symbiotic organisms," Zixara explained as they climbed through what felt like the inside of a giant lung. "They've maintained perfect balance for thousands of years. But recently they've been dying. They emerged into a vast chamber at the city's heart." Sarah gasped. The space was cathedral-like, filled with towering columns of what looked like coral, but coral that pulsed with light and breathed with visible rhythm. Many of the formations were dark, their light fading. "It's beautiful," Sarah whispered. "And it's dying. We don't understand why," Zixara said, their voice breaking. "Our best scientists have run every test, tried every remedy. Nothing works." Sarah approached one of the dark columns, placing her hand against its surface. It felt warm but sluggish, like a sick animal. "Have you considered that the problem might not be biological?" "What do you mean?" "On Earth, we learned that ecosystems can fail for reasons that have nothing to do with disease or predation. Sometimes they fail because of imbalance, not just chemical or biological, but behavioral." Sarah walked between the dying formations, her enhanced perception picking up patterns the Zephyrians had missed. "These organisms are social, aren't they? They communicate with each other." "Yes, through bioelectrical pulses. What if they're not sick? What if they're lonely?" Zixara's skin shifted to a color Sarah had never seen before, something between gold and green. "Lonely? Look at the pattern of failure. It started at the edges and moved inward. The isolated formations died first. Then it spread to their neighbors and their neighbors after that. They're not dying of disease, they're dying of despair." Sarah knelt beside one of the dimming columns, pressing both hands against its surface. "On Earth, we have trees that die when they're cut off from their forest networks. We have whales that beach themselves when they lose their pods. Even humans can die of loneliness. But we've maintained all the chemical balances, You've maintained their physical needs, but what about their emotional ones? Zixara stared at her. Emotional? They're organisms, not people. So were humans once upon a time. So were you. The line between organism and person isn't as clear as most species think. Sarah stood, her mind racing with possibilities. The enhanced neural pathways that Harmony had mentioned were firing rapidly now, making connections at speeds that amazed her. Zixara, what changed in the city recently? Not in the atmospheric processors, in the city itself, in the people. The young Zephyrian's eyes widened. The trade negotiations, for months the council has been tense, angry. There have been arguments, political maneuvering. The harmony of the city has been disrupted. And these organisms are connected to the city's bioarchitecture, aren't they? They're not just maintaining the atmosphere, they're part of the city's nervous system. They're feeling what the city feels. The collective mood, Zixara breathed. They're dying because the city is emotionally sick. Sarah nodded. And they can't recover until the harmony is restored. Not just chemical harmony, social harmony. But how do we fix that? The council is too proud, too set in their ways. Sarah smiled, and for the first time since arriving, she felt truly useful. That, my friend, is where being human comes in handy. We're very good at shaking up social hierarchies. As they prepared to leave the dying chamber, Sarah felt something else. A warmth spreading through her body. A sense of connection she'd never experienced before. The bioluminescent radiation wasn't just changing her mentally, it was changing her in ways that would soon become impossible to ignore, but she wouldn't discover that for several more days. Chapter 4. The transformation ambassador Kethvar was not having a good day. The human had been on Velthara for a week, and instead of becoming the submissive joke he'd intended, she was becoming a problem. A big one. She's been meeting with junior staff, Counselor Morthis reported, her skin patterns betraying agitation. Asking questions about our social structures, our decision-making processes. Some of the younger Zephyrians seem influenced by her ideas. She's also been spending time in the city archives, added Counselor Vextar, researching our history, our past alliances. She's learning things we didn't intend for her to know. Kethvar's 6 eyes focused on the holographic display showing Sarah's location, currently in the atmospheric processing center with tech adept Zixara. What is she doing there? Unknown. But the processors have shown a slight improvement since her visits began. Improvement? Kethvar's skin shifted to an alarming shade of red. Are you telling me that a primitive human is solving problems our best scientists cannot? The uncomfortable silence that followed was answer enough. In the depths of the processing center, Sarah was experiencing something unprecedented. As she worked with the dying organisms trying to restore their connection to the city's emotional network, she felt her own consciousness expanding. It started as whispers, faint impressions of thought and feeling that weren't her own. The organisms were trying to communicate with her, recognizing something in her transformed biology that even she didn't fully understand. Sarah, Zixara said softly, your bio readings are unusual. Sarah looked down at her hands. Her skin had taken on a faint luminescent quality, pulsing in rhythm with the organisms around her. I can feel them, she whispered. They're in pain, but not physical pain. They're heartbroken. Heartbroken? They remember when the city was happy, when all its parts worked together in harmony. Now there's discord everywhere, in the council chambers, in the trade negotiations, in the hearts of the people, and they can't bear it. Sarah pressed deeper into the bioluminescent network, her consciousness flowing along pathways of light and energy. She could sense the entire city now, millions of Zephyrians going about their daily lives, most unaware that their collective emotional state was killing the very systems that kept them alive. There's something else, she said, her voice taking on harmonics that sounded almost Zephyrian. They're not just dying, they're trying to send a message. What message? Sarah's eyes were glowing now. the same soft blue as the healthiest organisms. That isolation kills. That connection heals. That no matter how advanced a species becomes, they still need unity to survive. The irony wasn't lost on her. The Zephyrians had sent for a human bride as a joke, never realizing that their own survival might depend on the very connections they were trying to mock. That night, Sarah made a decision that would change everything. She requested a formal audience with the full council. Kithvar granted it immediately, seeing it as an opportunity to publicly humiliate her and prove his point about human inferiority. The great council chamber was packed with observers, high-ranking Zephyrians who had come to witness the spectacle. Sarah entered the circular chamber alone, wearing the simple human clothes she'd arrived in. Against the bioluminescent grandeur of her surroundings, she looked small and ordinary. Exactly what Kethvar had planned. "Sarah Chen of Earth," he announced, his voice carrying clearly through the living acoustics of the chamber. "You requested this audience. What wisdom does your species offer the Zephyrian Council?" Sarah walked to the center of the circle, her movements calm and deliberate. When she spoke, her voice carried new harmonics, frequencies that resonated with Zephyrian hearing in ways that made everyone sit up straighter. "I came here believing I was chosen to represent the best of humanity," she began. "I learned instead that I was chosen to represent what you consider the worst, a worker, a nobody, someone disposable." Murmurs rippled through the assembly. This wasn't going as expected. But in trying to insult humanity by sending its lowest member, you made a fundamental error. You assumed that worth is determined by status rather than character. That strength comes from position rather than principle. Sarah began to glow softly, her transformed biology responding to her emotional state. The watching Zephyrians had never seen anything like it. "Your atmospheric processors are dying," she continued, and gasps echoed through the chamber. "Your scientists can't fix them because they're approaching the problem scientifically, when the solution is social." Kethvar leaped to his feet. "That information is classified. Your city is an organism," Sarah said, her voice cutting through his protest. "And organisms die when their parts stop working together. Your political discord, your prejudice, your need to feel superior to other species, it's poison in your city's bloodstream." The glow around Sarah intensified. "You sent for a human bride as a joke, but perhaps what your empire actually needs is what humans have always offered: the ability to find unity in diversity, strength in cooperation, hope in the darkest circumstances." She turned slowly, meeting the eyes of Zephyrians throughout the chamber. "I am pregnant," she announced, and the chamber erupted in chaos. "Impossible," Kethvar snarled. "Humans and Zephyrians cannot reproduce." "We couldn't before," Sarah said calmly. "But I've been changed by my time here. And the child I carry will be something new. Something that bridges our species. Something that proves connection is stronger than separation." The truth was, Sarah wasn't entirely sure she was pregnant in any conventional sense, but something was growing inside her. New life, new possibilities, new hope. She could feel it as surely as she could feel the city's pain. "You wanted to humble humanity by sending its weakest member," she continued. "Instead, you may have created the key to both our species' survival, because this child, our child, will inherit the best of both worlds: human adaptability and Zephyrian harmony, human determination and Zephyrian wisdom." The chamber fell silent. Sarah's words hung in the air like a challenge to everything they thought they knew about themselves and their place in the universe. "The question now," she said softly, "is whether you're wise enough to embrace the future you've accidentally created or proud enough to destroy it." She walked toward the exit, leaving behind a room full of aliens who were seeing their assumptions crumble in real time. The joke had become something else entirely. It had become hope. The transformation of Velthara had been remarkable to witness. As the council slowly embraced the changes Sarah's presence had triggered, the city itself began to heal. The atmospheric processors glowed with renewed vigor, their bioluminescent networks pulsing with healthy rhythm. Trade negotiations with Earth had taken on an entirely different character. Instead of the Zephyrians trying to maintain superiority over humanity, both species were working toward genuine partnership. Sarah had become the unofficial ambassador between worlds, her unique biology allowing her to serve as a living bridge between human and Zephyrian consciousness. The child she carried was indeed unprecedented, not quite human, not quite Zephyrian, but something entirely new. Medical scans showed neural pathways that combined human creativity with Zephyrian harmony, human adaptability with Zephyrian longevity. The baby would be the first of a new kind of being, one that could literally think in the languages of both species. You realize what you've done, don't you? Zixara asked as they stood together on an observation deck, watching ships from a dozen different species dock at the renewed city. Sarah placed a hand on her growing belly, feeling the gentle movement within. I stopped a couple of atmospheric processors from dying. You've changed the course of galactic evolution, Zixara said seriously. The other council members are already discussing similar partnerships with other species. The age of Zephyrian isolation is ending, and the age of cooperation is beginning, Sarah added, which is what humans have been trying to tell everyone for centuries. We're stronger together than apart. She thought about the diner where she used to work, the cramped apartment she used to call home, the life of quiet desperation she'd been living just months before. That woman felt like a stranger now. Do you ever regret coming here? Zixara asked. Sarah smiled, watching the traffic flow between the stars. They sent me here as a joke, a cruel reminder of humanity's supposed place in the galactic hierarchy. But jokes have a way of revealing truth, don't they? And the truth is that worth isn't determined by where you start. It's determined by what you do with the opportunities you're given. Her communication device chimed with an incoming message from Earth. Another invitation, this time from the Global Council, asking her to return as humanity's official representative to the Zephyrian Empire. She would accept, of course, but not because she was desperate anymore, or because she had no other options. She would accept because she had found her purpose among the stars. Harmony, she called to the ship intelligence that had become her constant companion. Yes, Sarah? Prepare for departure to Earth. I think it's time to introduce my homeworld to the idea of hybrid children and cooperative evolution. It should be an interesting conversation, Harmony replied with what Sarah had learned to recognize as artificial amusement. As Velthara fell away behind them, Sarah reflected on the strange journey that had brought her here. She'd started as nobody special, a service worker barely scraping by. But she was returning as something unprecedented, the mother of the future, the bridge between worlds, the proof that connection could triumph over isolation. The aliens had sent her as a joke bride. She was returning as hope itself, and in her womb, the first citizen of a new age stirred quietly, dreaming dreams that belonged to no single species, but to all of them together. The universe would never be the same. Ding.